Hello and welcome to Stargazing, a show that brings you up close and personal with your favourite stars of reggae and dancehall music, Jamaican popular culture, and people who've impacted society in a very big way. I'm Shaun Cain. In this edition of the show, we'll speak with a producer, entrepreneur and publicist. In fact, he's someone who is the person to go to if you are looking to become a very successful reggae and dancehall artist. Let's take a look. Several artists have found fame and fortune in the reggae and dancehall industry, but these success stories owe much to numerous persons in the background who are constantly creating systems to help these entertainers deliver their unique stories to the world. One such person is entertainment publicist and writer Ralston Gladiator Barrett. Barret, who was born in Western Jamaica in the late 1970s, has created a name for himself as an artist career builder over the years. This reputation has made him the go-to person for fledgling artists that are looking to broadcast their stories, whether about music, personal lives, or ad hoc situations about which they needed to clarify their positions. With his compelling writing, Barret knows how to engage the public and make them ardent and ravenous consumers of his articles and press releases. He has mastered the ability to hold the reader's attention and drive home his key points. In the end, his clients always found themselves with more loyal fans and followers that anxiously seek after their music and other creative projects. Barret started out in the mid to early 1990s as a record producer before eventually moving into music management. He has produced music for Mr. Peck, Serial Kid, Tony Rebel and Queen Ifrica, among other popular names. Barret did not know much about the workings of the media, and he did not even feel the need to find out. But while he was producing records, he suddenly realized that he needed to get the attention of the media in order to have the music played on the radio and the accompanying videos shown on television. It was during this time that he began writing press releases and establishing contacts in the media. Barret eventually brought artists such as Richie Spice, Protégé and others to the fore. They have since gone on to become household names both in Jamaica and beyond. But as fate would have it, Barret, a father of two young girls, would be taken out of action unexpectedly for a long time. The celebrated entertainment publicist and writer was involved in a serious motor vehicle accident along with one of his daughters last year. While the 4-year-old escaped without injuries, Barret was not so lucky. The Western Jamaican native suffered a number of broken bones and was hospitalized for several months. He is now recovering at his home where the Stargazing with Shaun Cain Show caught up with him. Welcome back. Ralston, wagwan, sir?
Well, I'm here, Shaun. It's a pleasure to be here on your show. But after listening to that wonderful intro, I'm wondering if I'm in the right place, because you said stars and people have impacted society, and I am not a star in any sense of the imagination. Nor do I think I have impacted society. So why am I here?
You're a star, man. You have impacted society, but you're just downplaying it. I don't know why you're trying to lessen your shine, but you're all of that.
No, I've helped to bring a lot of stars to the forefront of the Jamaican music industry. Some of them have gone on beyond to the international scene. So while I'm not a star, I could be considered somewhat of a servant of this music industry.
Yeah, someone who's done big things to influence the direction in which the music has gone. And just for those who are just joining, Ralston, he's at home at the moment, recuperating after a major accident, which we're going to talk about later on in the show. But I just thought I would put everything into context so you can understand why he's lying down, if I may say that.
Yeah.
But Ralston, you grew up in Western Jamaica, the rather exotic parts. We've got the Rick's Cafe and all them different things. I mean, what was life like as a young boy growing up in Western Jamaica?
Well, I look at my hometown as paradise, so to speak. I grew up in West End Negril. As a matter of fact, I could stay in my yard and look at the Rick's Cafe sign, the entrance to Rick's Cafe, as a matter of fact. So it was a beautiful place to be in, and it was a wonderful time growing up. As a child born in the latter part of the '60s. Sorry, not the '60s, the '70s rather, and growing up in the '80s and the '90s. It was a very exciting time because I got to interact and meet I got to meet a lot of people from different nations. We interact with these people because my grandmother had a restaurant that was very popular, and I used to work in the restaurants during the summers. And at times, even when I get home from school, we had to go and help out in the business. So, I met people from all over. Not just the US or England or say Canada, but I would meet people from faraway places like Egypt. I met somebody from Timbuktu once, and I didn't even know that these places. As a child, I thought these places were imaginary places. I didn't know that they were real.
Yeah, just figment of the imagination sort of thing.
Yes. So it was a great experience, and to me, I've always said that Negril was the reggae capital of Jamaica because the most live events were held in Negril. I mean, like 7 days per week. There was a live reggae concert, and I'm talking about top acts. You're talking about the likes of Dennis Brown. You're talking about people like Gregory Isaacs. You're talking about Culture. You're talking about Maxi Priest. You're talking about anyone who was someone at that time, and even the dancehall artists, King Yellowman, so many of them, General Trees, you name them, all the top stars from the '80s. I would have had an opportunity to see them, while growing up. So I guess this played a major role in, me developing this love for music because, as far as I can remember, I was able to go to events at a certain age, with my aunts and my aunt and my uncle. So I got a little taste of it from that early stage, and then as I grew older, teenage years, my grandmother would allow me to go to events. So it was just this vibrant place. Negril was this booming place, tourism, entertainment. It was just this place that never slept. One politician referred to Negril as the capital of casual because he said Negril was just a place to be, and Negril was a town that never slept. So,
I think that's a very big advert for Negril. So the tourists who are watching, I'm sure they'll be planning to go on down there. But you mentioned a lot about your grandmother. So I'm just wondering, was she the person that you grew up with? Where was your mother not in the picture at the time?
no, my mother gave me to my paternal grandmother when I was 7 months old, and which I think is one of the best things that could have happened to me. Maybe as a child, I didn't see it that way, but now looking back, I realized that probably it was something that was preordained. It was destined to be. The story goes, my mom and my dad, two young people at the time, they were having relationship issues, and there was a struggle between them. And my grandmother saw my mom with me one day at the clinic, and she spoke to her about what was going on, between she and my dad, and my grandmother expressed her concern about my well-being and said that she didn't want me to suffer as a result of the problems that they were having, and she asked her to give me to her so she could raise me. Recently, I spoke to my mom about it. I'm in my 40s now, so I just got the fullness of the story. And my mom told me the story just the same as my grandmother did. And she expressed to me that making that decision to give me to my grandmother was the hardest thing that she has ever done in her entire life. And she said she went home and she thought about it and she did not want to do it. She was encouraged by a family member to do so. And she said she cried all the way from Little London to Negril as she traveled to my grandmom's home
Mhm.
to give me to my grandmother
Your grand-
and
But,
cried all the way back.
but Ralston, did you at the time hold any kind of grudges against your mother for having given you up to your grandmother? Did you question it?
No,
Think within yourself?
no,
Was it
I
something?
wouldn't say I wouldn't say grudges.
Mm,
The thing that made it difficult for me, Sean, as I grew up, I'm going to prep school, and there are times when the teachers would ask you certain things, like they would say to tell them, or to write an essay about your parents,
mhm,
or they would ask you what kind of occupation does your mom have or your dad have.
mhm,
I didn't know what to tell them. I didn't know anything about my parents because by now I would have been, living with my grandmother for basically all my life because you give me to my grandmother at 7 months. If I know I'm like what 8 years old or 7 years old going to prep school, and they ask me these questions, I can't answer them. I cannot relate to certain things that my friends are telling me. My friends are telling me about, their home life with their mommy and daddy. I don't have a mommy and daddy. I don't have any of that.
mhm,
So as I grew up, I felt resentment towards my parents because I was saying, why did they abandon me? My mother has, um, at the time, she would have had about what, four of us, five of us. And I was saying, am I not good enough?
mhm,
Why did she keep the others and didn't raise me?
mhm,
And then my dad, he was living down the road, less than a mile, and he had other children. And I'm saying, am I not good enough? Why didn't he take me from my mother or take me from my grandmother and raise me?
mhm,
So I grew up with that kind of feeling. Um, I felt hurt. And now as an adult, I realized that there was a time in my life that I was a depressed child. Probably they didn't sense that. I mean, I was never very happy. I got everything now. I got everything. My grandmother gave me a wonderful upbringing. My life was not devoid of the things that most kids would want or would enjoy. I had toys. I got to go to good schools. I went to church. I had there was a lot of love first and foremost from my grandmother and her children, my aunt and my four uncles. They all showered me with love. I was like the pet in the family for because I'm the oldest grandchild, so I was the first one in the house as a grandchild for a very long time,
mhm,
and they showered me with love.
mhm.
And all these people loved me and protected me and nurtured me and helped me to become the man that I am today. But I longed for my father's attention
But
even
why?
more than my mother's attention.
Yeah, but while you were longing for your parents' love and attention, were you brave enough to raise the question with your mother or your grandmother as to why you weren't living with your paternal parents?
At a certain point, I would talk to my grandmother about it, and she would express to me, I know she didn't mean it negatively, but she would say to me that I'm the only person you have, and I'm the only person who's gonna love you and see to it that you go through this world. And she would keep praying and saying, I don't want to die until you have passed the worst because it's my duty to see to it that you get past the worst because you're my child. And she would say to me, don't worry about your parents not being around. Don't worry about them not giving you the love and the affection and the attention that you want. But she could tell me that from now till thy kingdom come.
Mm.
It didn't mean anything to me because I would hide and cry
Mm.
about this. Yeah. And I remember one time my dad moved from Negril because he worked at the lighthouse. He was a lighthouse attendant. And he moved and lived in Port Antonio for a few years. So that made it even worse because the few little um, times that I would get to see him, because sometimes, as I grew up, um, I used to walk down to the lighthouse on weekends and Saturdays mainly and go and see him. And we would spend some time together. He would go down to the cliff and catch fish, taught me to fish. And he would look about the fish and clean it up and scale those fish and go back and fry fish and and we eat together. So that's that little whatever little bonding that was there would disappear with that visit. And the moment I heard that he was going away, it hurt me deeply. It hurt me very much. And I wrote him a letter expressing my feelings, the hurt that I felt. And I didn't get back a response from him. And up to today, Shaun, speaking about it, it hurts me deeply. It hurts me deeply.
Did you ask him if he got the letter?
Later on in life, when we became close enough, I didn't bring up the subject. I never asked him.
Were you scared of the answer, or you just thought that time had passed on it? It wasn't relevant anymore?
I think that time had elapsed. And what we needed was to focus on what we have or what we had at that point in time, because my father is no longer here. He passed away last month, and it's kind of difficult for me to talk about it. But, I just figured it was time to just focus on the now. And we made peace, because as I grew up, I got very aggressive as it relates to deal with my father. And, there were times when I made him know, that I was angry with him for not being there, and we would have arguments, and excuse me.
Yeah, yes, I understand.
Yeah. In 2009, I had a very terrible car accident, and I was lying in the hospital. I was crying one day, and a nurse said to me, "What's wrong with you?" And I said, "My dad and I don't speak. We're not on speaking terms, and I could have died because in this accident, I broke my left femur bone in 3 places, and my left wrist, and also cracked my left hip, and I had to do multiple surgeries before coming out of the hospital. So it was indeed a very traumatic experience, and I was just saying to myself, I said, I could die. I could have died, and me and my father not talking. I expressed this to the nurse, and she said, don't worry, things will work out, and I'm sure you'll talk to him, and he will talk to you. That same day, I fell asleep, and when I woke up, my telephone was ringing, and it woke me up. And when I looked, it was my dad calling me, and we talked, and he said that he was coming to see me in the hospital, and he did come, and he visited me a couple of times before I got out. That was the beginning of a new phase of our relationship. Then a better phase,
so
a better period.
When Dad said he was coming to see you, how did that make you feel?
I was overjoyed. And I'm going to tell you how much it really meant to me for my father to be there. It was like a little child. I imagine my daughter Symphony or my other daughter Amelia, whenever they would see me coming home when I still had, when I was still married, and we were under one roof, and I would imagine that's how they, how I felt, is the way they feel, they feel when they see me, when I came out of the hospital, my dad was constantly at my house. He would show up every morning to make sure that everything was all right with me. I got something to eat, and if he didn't come early in the morning, he would come mid-morning or midday. And I remember one a couple of times he would say to me, "You want some porridge?" And he go and make porridge for me and stuff like that. That made me feel good. That was, to me, him showing me that he cared and that he loves me. You know what I mean?
Did you tell him that that's how you felt? That it made you feel good? You felt that he was doing the things that he never did when you were a child?
I don't remember saying those things in so many words, but I remember one day he was there with me, And I reached out my hands, my hand to him. I extended my hand and I held his hand and I squeezed it. And I said to him, I love you, you know. And he said to me, he just nodded. He said, yeah, man, I know. And he never, it's like from that day on, from that experience going forward, we never had an issue again. We never had any issues. We never had any issues. Unfortunately, he would have a stroke in 2012, no, sorry, 2013, and go on to have another one that was even worse the following year. And that same year, I had to move to St. Elizabeth, so I didn't get to see as much of him in the ensuing years, but I would visit and I would see him from time to time. It was kind of sad because most times he would cry and say, you know, he misses me and he doesn't know what's happening with me, you know, showing the concern that any parent, you know, will show for a child. They're saying, I don't know what's happening with you, you're so far away and I can't walk, I can't see you. You know, it was very painful to see him in the last few years. You know, but I'm happy that we made peace and we didn't have any issues, you know, going forward, you know.
I'm glad to hear that because reconciliation is always good. It gives you peace, and I would imagine it gave him some peace. But then again, you had so much love wrapped around you when you were growing up. But there was also pain because I remember you mentioned when we were sort of talking a little bit a while ago that one of your favorite uncles, you lost him when you were still a little boy, still trying to
Yeah.
understand the concept.
I was just a toddler at the time.
So
I
you
think
didn't have much
I think
of an understanding of the concept of death and dying. So how did you
well
do that?
well as I said, I was a toddler. I was like 3 years old, and he was killed by the police. And you know, like I'm there at the house with my grandmother. It's early morning, and somebody run to the house and say, Miss Morel, you know, police shoot Gladstone. You know, I don't know what that means because I don't know. I don't understand any of that. All I know is that my grandmother rushed outside the house and they're passing with his body now in a police vehicle, and she sees him because the back of the vehicle is open, and she begins to cry and she's calling out his name and she's holding her stomach, you know, and she's calling to God and saying, why? And the next thing I know, she throws herself on the wet grass, you know, because it's the Jews on the grass, and she's crying and she's reeling in pain and agony, and I'm just there and I don't know what's happening. I can't understand. At that time, the most painful part of the whole thing for me was that day to see my grandmother in you know, like that. But then even more painful was the funeral. You know, Jamaican tradition, I think this is something that came over from our African ancestry, where whenever there's a burial of a relative, they would take the child and put the child over the coffin, you know. So as I think it's a way to protect the child, because especially if that family member love the child, they don't want the spirit to come back and play with the child. That's what I was told. So they put me over the coffin, and I'm looking at my dead uncle's body, and that's the last image of him that I have in my head. And I kept seeing him in my mind as I continued to grow up, you know. You know, up until a certain point, that continued. And I would say to my grandmother, Mama, see Uncle Gladstone out there, so I pick mango under the mango tree. Or I would tell her that I saw him around the back, sitting down in the shade or some. So who knows what I was going through. I was traumatized. I don't know. I'm not really somebody who believes in I'm not superstitious by any measure of the imagination, by any stretch of the imagination. But back then I thought I saw him.
Right.
But then also what the experience did to me was to make me afraid whenever somebody would leave the house for a prolonged period of time. My interpretation of that was you don't see the person again, right? The person who has died, you're not going to see them again because I couldn't see my uncle again. So anybody who left the house for a prolonged period of time, I kept asking, are they him dead? Um, Mama, I remember one of my uncles went away to Canada for some time, and I cried for days until he came back because why I can't see him? You know what I mean? I dead him dead. You know, so that impacted me a lot. It took me a while to get over it. Even in my teens, I would still cry over my uncle. You know, so that was a very painful experience.
Have you got past
Painful.
that? Have you got past that now? You think you are in a better place to
I
deal
think
with it?
I think I'm at a place now, Sean, where my uncle's passing doesn't affect me so much anymore, and because I've lost my grandmother since and my granddad, and I've lost two uncles.
And
One
you,
of them,
hmm
I've lost my dad. I've lost a younger brother. Um, so I'm at that point now where I can deal with it, but you're always gonna miss those persons, and I miss my grandmother terribly, and my grandfather, and I guess I feel the same way about my dad. I miss all of them, but I can deal with it.
Okay. Well, that's very good though, because you know what? Sometimes when people leave your life, you've got others coming in, and of course, you've got two lovely daughters. And you are such
Yeah,
a brilliant dad to your two daughters. I mean, how has
but I
the
try.
upbringing that you had prepared you for the kind of parent you are now?
Well, let me tell you something. As I said before, I was mad at my parents for a while, for a long while. But what it taught me, from I was small, I said I would not be like my parents. At first, I told myself I had to be a better parent than they were to me. But that was the anger speaking.
Mhm.
When I reached a point now where I could have discussions with them, because I asked my dad, I said, what happened with you and my mother? And he told me his version. I spoken to my mom. She told me her version. And I haven't taken any sides with either of them. But it gives me some kind of understanding of what transpired, what led up to me being given away to my grandmother.
Mhm.
So, in a sense, my parents have helped to prepare me to be the parent that I am
Mhm.
because I know how I felt as a child with them not being around. So
Mhm.
I decided that I would not let a child feel that way.
Mhm.
So I told myself from I was very young, any child, if I have one child, if
Mhm.
I have 10, I will not let them feel the way I felt.
Mhm.
You know, I must give my grandmother full credits for whatever parenting skills I might possess. Because Sean, she did prepare me for life. She did sit me down and talk to me at times about the importance of being a decent human being, being kind, being caring, being respectful, being affectionate to people, not just your own,
Mhm.
but caring about others. You know, she was a humanitarian, my grandmother. She cared about people. She would do anything she could to help others. And she passed that on to me. And I remember one day she said to me, when you grow up, if you get in a relationship with a woman who has a child, be prepared to love that child as much as you love the mother. Because you cannot love the cow and don't love the calf. So if you know that you cannot love a woman's child that is not your biological child, don't get involved with her.
Mhm.
And a lot of people might not know this. There are two little girls in my life, Amira and Symphony. Um, Amira is not my biological child. When I met her mother, she was like probably like 9 or 10 months old, somewhere there's about. So I raised her as my child. And up to today, although her mother and I are divorced, she still calls me daddy. And I still play the role of a daddy in her life. And my grandmother helped me to prepare for this experience, even though I didn't know I was going to have such an experience. Symphony is my biological child, and I love both of them the same. So, I take parenting very seriously because, you see, the black race has been through so much. We were taught a lot of negative things based on the experiences that we've had.
Mhm.
You know, going back to slavery, what they would do, the slave masters break up the families, they separate them. They let the black man feel as if he was just a stud. He could, they used slaves, male slaves, to just go and breed other women so they could have more slaves because we were chattel. So it is important for us as black men
Mhm.
to play the role of a father and play it well
Mhm.
because children need their fathers.
Mhm.
And researches have shown that children are less likely to do well if they grow up in a home without a father. So I take this to me is the most important job that I have right now, being a father.
Mhm.
And my grandmother helped me to prepare for that. My
Mhm.
grandfather did so as well.
Mhm.
You know,
Mhm.
they gave me a solid foundation.
Yeah, I like the way you took it seriously, very, very seriously, and that's very good. Now, the other bit I want to touch on now is that I think you mentioned it briefly about the accident. You had two accidents, one in 2009, another one in 2020, and they had major
Yes.
impact on your life. Significantly, they affected you. The last one in particular, 2020. What happened? Can you take us back through that event? You had your daughter with you.
I want I want to go back to 2009 first, if you allow me.
Yes, please.
2009, I was on the road working for a client, and I went to IRFM to sort out some, music promotions. I took some CDs up there and to liaise with some disc jockeys and, make some connections for the artists. On my way back in Miami Bay, I wasn't driving. This was in a taxi. The cab driver, he collided. I don't know how our vehicle collided, but with another vehicle head on. I'm the only person who was damaged. My left femur was broken, my left hip cracked, and my left wrist broken. Most people, for those who don't know, I'm a very big man. I'm a few 100 pounds. Let's leave it at that. I
Yes.
guess they would say I'm obese.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
so Shaun lying down in a hospital bed for months, doing multiple surgeries. It was not easy. Some people thought I was going to die because I got to a point now where I was so weak because I refused to eat hospital food. I wouldn't eat anything that they bring to me in the hospital. So it was rough. But why I mention it is not to highlight what I went through. It's to highlight what going through has done for me. It forced me to realize my mortality because as a young person, a young man, most young people, we think that we are immortal. We think that we're invincible. That brought me face to face with what could have turned out to be death. Not only during the accident, but in one of the surgeries, something went wrong and they almost lost me. I almost died in surgery, the first surgery. So it brought me closer to my creator, and it also taught me to become a more humble human being, to appreciate every moment of life even more than I did before. And it set me on a path now, Shaun, where I began to read a lot because in 2009 I was lying down in bed for almost 6 months, and then I heard that I had to do another surgery again. So I was in bed for another 6 months and change. And within the first few months, my fiance, who I was supposed to get married to that year, September of that year, I think I crashed in March, and I was supposed to get married in September. By June, she had left me. Somebody brought me a copy of this book, The Secret. And the person said, "You're going to need this more than ever." The person who gave me the book was not somebody that I was very close with at the time or very fond of, but the person turned up and gave me the book. That's Clive Cuba Pringle of MX3 Entertainment in Negril. He was one of the top promoters top event promoters in Jamaica in the 90s. May his soul rest in peace. He gave me that book and he said, "Cuz, you're gonna need to read this." And I read it. So another friend, Shetenge, I think she was the first female winner of the popular the Jamaican festival contest. She sang the song "Show Me a Country Without a Problem." She came by, saw the book, and said to me, say, "Where you get this book?" I said, "Kuba give it to me." She said, "Kuba care about you because this is a good book. And when you read it, your life is going to change." She was so correct. So I read that and I read Gifted Hands and several other books. Think and Grow Rich.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Hill and
Yeah. I started to get into that kind of groove, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I was reading all kind of books.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I started to find myself thinking in a different way. Well, you know that after being a publicist from around 1999, I started to do PR professionally, that is. So 2009 would have been 10 years. I was lying in bed and I was now working with people like, say, Richie Spice, Egyptian. These guys were still are some of the big names in reggae music today. I also represented Protege. I got the job to work with Protege. He was an unknown artist then, and I stayed on my bed and did everything I could to put him into the spotlight. By the time I had recuperated enough that I could walk around with a walker, he was a popular act in Jamaica. Some of the greatest things happened to me, Shaun, while I was lying down on that bed. So it was a great experience. I also lost my grandmother before I could walk properly. It was a painful experience. But this is a part of the growth. Mm-hmm. You have to grow in, and when you're growing, growing comes with pain. Mm-hmm. So let's fast forward to the most recent accident now.
Yes.
It was a Sunday morning, and I'm driving downtown with my daughter. She didn't want to go in. And normally, she, as her eyes open, she wanted to go on the road. Daddy, we have to go and do this, do that. She wanted us to go and pick up the nanny. But the nanny doesn't work on Sunday, so she would come up with an excuse that she needs snacks. Even though she has snacks, so she wanted us to go and get snacks at the supermarket. Or let's go to KFC, So she said, "Daddy, I don't want to go up on the road, I said, "But we have to because I was going to take care of some business at the ATM. So we drove out. We were at the stoplight within a few minutes because I don't live far from the town. And when it was our time to go through, I saw this guy coming from the left. Shaun, I don't know if it was a plane, the man flying. I couldn't get away from him. The man slammed right into the vehicle. My major concern now, because my vehicle was pushed out onto the banking on the right-hand side. Mm-hmm. So accident done happen. So me want to make sure that my daughter alive. I want to know that my child is alive. I look around the back. I said, "Symphony, are you all right?" And she said, "Yes, Daddy." She said, "Daddy, you're dead?" I said, No, baby, I'm not dead." "Daddy, you're dead?" I said, "No, I'm not dead." She said, "You sure you're not dead?" I said, "No." And I said, "Pull the seatbelt and come to Daddy." And she come around to me. She said, "Daddy, move." But then I realized I can't move because my leg was broken. And it's like she started crying and she put her head through one of the windows and she said, "Help, help. My father needs help. My daddy needs help. Somebody please call my mommy." And my daddy need help. And, people start to run over now, and next thing I know, the firemen were on the scene. Some police officers were passing by, they stopped and they assisted. With the help of the fireman, they got me into the back of the police pickup and they took me to the Salama Hospital, the Black River Hospital, where they examined me and treated me and sent me home. And then a few days later, I ended up at Mandeville at the bone specialist clinic, orthopedic clinic, and I was admitted there. So I spent a couple of weeks in Mandeville because I had to undergo surgery. And then I came back out, and then I had a problem now because the wound got infected on my leg. As a surgical wound. So I ended up back in the hospital for several more weeks now. It was a rough ordeal for me physically, yes, and mentally, but more so for Symphony because she's not used to being without me for prolonged periods of time. She's only 4.
So was she injured as well, or she escaped?
Most of her life, been living with me. Um, Not a scratch, not a bruise. All praises be to the Lord. And when I found out that when she came to me, when she came around from the back, and I hugged her, and I realized that there was nothing wrong with her physically, I was relieved because that was my biggest concern.
Mhm.
I know I'm alive. She's alive, and I don't want her to, to have any wounds or anything. I'm just hoping that she don't have a broken bone or she don't get a cut. I don't want anything happening to my child. So it was a traumatic experience for her, but she's a very resilient child, I must say.
Mhm.
And she's at a point now, I think, now that she see me moving around, because I can walk with a walker now, um, I've been, convalescing at home for about 2 months now, and I've been doing therapy.
Mhm.
And she sees me standing up and making movements with the walk and stuff like that, so she's happier now.
Mhm. That's
Yeah, man, but it was a tough experience.
I see you're recovering as well because I think yesterday you had your first few steps in about 4 months.
I've been taking small steps
Right.
for about 2 weeks, but
Mm-hmm.
yesterday was the first time I actually because the steps that I took before, yes, they had to lead up I had to make those to lead up to what happened yesterday. But yesterday I walked.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't so timid. I wasn't afraid of
Mm-hmm.
putting on the weight and the damaged leg.
Mm-hmm.
I actually walked around the room,
So how did that
so that
make
was a big thing.
how did that make you feel?
Yeah, man, I'm well on the road to recovery. And I've been, yeah, man. I'm giving thanks to the Lord for that.
Yes. So you can see clear signs of recovery and progress.
Of course, of course. Listen, very soon I'll be calling you and telling you that I just ran a marathon.
You know what? I can't wait to hear that kind of
what would
news. I can't wait to hear that kind of news.
what would the world be without?
Yeah.
What would the world be without that little humor? Yeah,
Yeah, can you imagine? We
yeah,
can't
man.
be all doom and gloom. We've got to find the brighter side of life. Look towards the sunshine. Yeah.
Yes,
Yes.
yes,
So,
yes,
so
yes.
that's good. But then again, now in terms of moving on, well, all the health issues, and then in terms of the accidents and you recovering and all of that, you mentioned a little bit about your role as a publicist earlier. So in terms of musicians, now, who are some of the musicians that you worked with? Because you've been a producer before you became a publicist.
I started as a producer. So in studio over the years, I would have worked with people like the likes of Sly and Robbie, Linkin Marsden, um, Winston. Sorry, but remember his correct name, but Bo P, who just passed away recently, one of Jamaica's best guitar players.
Mm-hmm.
This man played with you name them, all the greats. People like Rabelin, Urchina Smith, Mikey Fletcher, the Firehouse Crew. So many musicians, Danny Marshall, Danny Axman, so many musicians over the years I've worked with in studio. And I've also produced songs for people like Tony Rebel, Queen Ifrica, um, Elephant Man, Daily Ranks, a lot of artists, Anthony B, George Nooks, Lukey D, Kip Rich, Mr. Vegas, Roundhead, General B. I produce a lot of different artists, Cecile. So I've worked with quite a few of,
Huge repertoire.
yeah,
Yes, quite a bit. But who stands out
yeah.
to me?
But
One of those.
but it's,
Yeah, go on, go on. Yes, you finish off.
you see, I started out with the music by playing sound system. Because when I started getting into trouble, it was because I was playing a sound system. That's why I ended up in farm school, because I said I was disturbing the peace and blah blah blah, breaking the night noise abatement act and stuff like that, and I link that up with the whole thing with that, with me not being in school. And so when I said I had to make a choice, I chose music, or more correctly, music chose me, because music showed me a way to do something that I love,
Mm.
and to also to keep out of trouble, and to do what would develop into a thriving career, because I didn't know that I would end up being a top publicist in the Jamaican music industry,
Mhm.
because that was never my goal.
Mm.
I never even knew the word publicist. If I heard it, I didn't know what it meant.
Mhm.
But I had a knack for promoting young talent and
Mm.
getting them exposure, because I was very aggressive in terms of seeking out people like yourself who gave me
Yeah,
interviews
because
when you were working at
yeah,
JVC.
because as you said that, Ralston, yeah, as you said
And
that, I remember that it was
yeah,
1995, 96 that we met at JVC when I was producing and presenting a show called Show Beat.
yeah,
Then, we got in touch. And then I think you had an artist
so
called
beat, yes,
Peck at the time. And that
yeah,
was the artist you were pushing. So, yes, you've been around doing
Mr.
that
Penn,
for a little while now.
yes, yes,
Yes, I
yeah.
remember. Hmm.
Yeah, I started out in the music business when I was 14, so 95, 96, I was still in my teens. I've been in the music business for 31 years. So this year. So the whole thing is, as I said, I have a knack for pushing talent. And then after having some bad experiences with trying to break artists that I was managing, people would say to me, come and work for us and promote our artists. We pay your salary. And I didn't want to do that. But in 1999, I relented and took an offer from a gentleman who is now deceased, Byron, by the name of Byron Murray. He was running the In the Streets label at the time. It was a labor and distribution company and management company. He was responsible for artists like Mr. Vegas. Mr. Vegas was the main act. Vegas was on the rise then as a dancer star, and the Hawkeye and Alizade and Kip Richard, some of the other artists who were amongst our camp.
Hmm.
And then I ended up doing PR for all those guys. And then it just spread. People would say, Mo, you come work for me. The artists would just see me in Kingston and say, well, Mo, you come work for me, the more you give me a strength. But I did a lot of PR stuff, sometimes just for free too, because I wanted to make my name.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I took it upon myself to approach people and do stuff for them, and then the word would get around. And it took me about 10 years, as I said, as I mentioned before I would reach to what I could define as the pinnacle of success as a publicist. I
Hmm.
wouldn't say the pinnacle of success, but becoming a household name then
I
in the
understand what you
Jamaican
mean.
music
Yeah.
industry as far as public.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah. So it has been a very exciting experience, working as starting out playing a sound system, working as a sound system manager, because I used to manage the Turbophonic sound system, which was one of the biggest sound systems in the latter part of the 90s.
Hmm.
And we also toured the UK and stuff like that, and had some memorable clashes with Kilimanjaro, Stone Love, Bass Odyssey, you name them. So that was a great experience. And then to go on and produce music, and to produce, not only produce music, but music that will become hit music, and to hear your music playing on the radio or in a dance and see people dancing to it and putting them fingers in the air and giving gun salute. It's a fabulous thing. I remember producing a hit song for Tony Rebel called Loyal Soldier. I remember watching him perform that song at St. Mary Macomb from 1 year. And when he went on stage and he began his performance, and then when he got into that song, and when he drew for that song, man, the lighters go up on all the flowers, and somebody was next to me, a guy next to me said, no, like him say, Rallo, you're a big man in the business now, you're right, But in my mind, I have never arrived. I'm still not. I still haven't arrived. I'm a servant of this music industry. I'm here to serve. I'm here to help people get out there. I'm here to push people forward. I believe in working with young talent more than anything else. It's a
Well,
joy to work with an artist from the get. Yeah.
yeah, but as you talk about
Go ahead. Go ahead.
pushing and helping people, you were helped along the way. You received a lot of kindness from strangers. In particular, I
Yes.
remember a gentleman called
Yes. Yes.
Kerry Russell was one of the gentlemen, the late Kerry Russell, who
Yes.
did a lot for you in terms of helping you to
Yes.
understand the industry, develop your craft to the extent of being who you are now. So tell me
Yes.
a little bit about Kerry and
Well,
the kind of work that Kerry did with you or the
yes.
support he offered.
Here, well, he didn't work with me per se, but I learned about him because of a friend of mine who was an artist. I saw him on a program on TV, and when he got up, I called him. I said, "How did you get on that show?" He said, "My publicist set it up." So I said, "Publicist? What that? What's a publicist?" So man, my wife hired this man who just set up everything. So I asked for his number, and I called him up, and I said, "I need a publicist," and I was told that you're a publicist, and we start talking, and he explained what he did and the costs. I said I couldn't afford the guy, so I said, "You don't have a young youth price, man. You don't have a price for people just starting out," and he laughed, and he said, "No, that's the price. Is the price." I said, "How about some kind of discount?" So I would call and I would knock this guy repeatedly, and one day he said, "This, I'm going to teach you some stuff. I'm going to teach you some stuff about PR," and he gave me the rudiments, I should say. Um, about how to write a press release and how to send out a formal request or to make a formal request for a telephone interview. Mind you, I was doing some of those things before, but not doing them correctly. But I was getting through because I guess I developed a reputation as being a nagging young man who constantly harassed people at the media houses. And I don't know if that's the reason why some of them gave in and they gave me a blight, they gave me a break. I got me and Mr. Peck and what was then probably and still probably is the one of the most popular television shows in Jamaica. Back then it was called
Morning time.
I think Smile. It's morning time.
Hmm.
Yeah, but it's called Smile Jamaica. And
Hmm.
we were the morning coffee guests. Could you believe it? I mean, like we were there doing that. So Kerry Russell helped me. I spoke to this man over the phone for about a year. And then when we finally met face to face one day in Kingston Town, the very next day I was listening to the radio and heard that he got shot downtown. There was a lot of violence going on at that period of time downtown, and he had gone to pick up his mom from work, and somebody approached him and tried to rob him, and he resisted, and they killed him, which is a very sad thing, because especially for me, because I never got a chance to say thank you, because having seen where I am now as a publicist, because I've been doing PR as my main occupation for, let's say from I started out in '99, so it's been a number of years now since I've been focusing on doing PR. You know, so that's why what 22 years.
Hmm.
Am I correct?
Yes, around about.
Not so good with numbers, but it's been a while.
Hmm.
Yeah. So it's I lift my hat off to Kerry Russell for his help. Each and every person that I've come in contact with who has made a positive impact on my life in some way or form, they have helped me to become who I am.
And it's very positive.
So I
Rod,
like to say
it's very positive that you can
thank you
look
to
back.
anyone who was, yeah,
Yeah, it's very positive that you can look back,
yes,
recall these people, and just give a shout out. Just say to that you contributed to the journey, and which brought me to where I am now.
yeah, man, they
And
all did, they all did.
that's good. But you know what? Another bit I want to find out is a publicist. We hear that kind of fancy term all the time. And there might be up and coming artists who don't really understand who a publicist is and what they do. So, can you quickly just give me a rundown of what a typical publicist's job description would entail?
Well, in a nutshell, the publicist is the go-to person if you want exposure. The publicist is the person who's going to get you in the newspapers, who's going to get you on TV, get you on the radio. I always say to people, three main functions that I perform. I write articles about you and get them published. I will get you booked for radio interviews and television interviews. That's the basics of it. But a real publicist does offer more than that because, we come up with PR campaign strategies. In my case, given the amount of experience I have in various fields in the industry, I also give a lot of advice and counseling to my artists and to their management team, because most of the time it's a new artist, the management is new, they don't know anything about the business, and I have to advise them about how to go about releasing music, how to go about getting the music copyright, and copyrighted and stuff like that, or to set up publishing, so a publicist has become a very essential part of the whole setup now. When an artist wants to get out there, when an artist wants to be successful. Probably in the 80s, who knows? I don't know how many publicists were in Jamaica. In the 90s, there were a handful of publicists. I know that Dennis Howard was one of them, and Kerry Russell, and I think T. Boots Harris was a publicist. I'm not quite sure. I think he was a publicist, dating back to the earlier days for Bob Marley. There weren't a lot of publicists in Jamaica at one point in time, but the latter part of the 90s going into the 2000s, publicists have become a part of the Jamaican, a very important part of the Jamaican music industry. But I don't think we get the respect that we deserve. We don't get a lot of respect, but we play a pivotal role. And I notice the award shows.
I think people don't probably fully understand the work that you do and how important your work is. But now that the industry is becoming more competitive, people realize that they need to shout louder than everybody else, shout above the crowd to get the attention that they need so that they can start gaining some traction in their career. And that's why they'll start seeking you out. So you'll find that the industry is changing a lot now. People are finding you out now, and they're realizing the importance.
It is changing. It is changing. It is changing, and everybody knows that they need to have a publicist. But what they don't know, what most of them don't know, is that they need to pay the publicist for what they are. Yeah, I'm gonna tell you. Yeah, them want to pay everybody else, but publicists mustn't get anything. Publicists must get pittance, and I don't work for pittance.
Yes.
And they want you to be on call like you're a policeman or a doctor, like you're an essential service worker. You must be on call 24 hours. But you're not getting the respect or the remuneration that you deserve. And I'm saying we need to be treated with more respect for the quality work, for the work that we're putting in. We are making a big contribution to this industry. And I see Jaria putting on an event every year to honor people in the music industry, from artists, musicians, engineers, managers, journalists, broadcasters, everybody. Even look like even the gate man gonna get an award one year, and publicists don't have an award. We don't get awards. So why publicists can't get an award too?
Well, I'm sure that's going to change after you made this statement. They're going to realize, oh, we've left out the publicists, so we've got to draft them in now, and there's going to be a special award.
They know that they have left out the publicists.
Yeah, that's it.
They know they have left us out, and
I'm not trying to put you on the spot here, even though I might be doing that. But the rates for publicists, do those vary depending on the artist, the budget of the artist, or it depends on, you've got a rate sheet, or it depends on the relationship with the person that who's looking representation? I mean, how much do these things cost?
I for one have started many things as it relates to how we function that were new. I come with a lot of new and probably novel ideas and implement these. I have packages. Creating packages makes it easier to negotiate with the clients and also to provide them with what they need and what they can afford, because you cannot buy champagne on a red stripe beer budget. So I have different levels or different tiers in terms of the packages.
Right.
So I give the client the packages and they choose what they need. Sometimes I recommend a package for the client and explain the reason why they need this particular package. But then at the end of the day, it's all up to that client to choose what they need. At the same time, for those who cannot afford to pay a monthly retainer, I will work on retainer. But some people don't understand the concept of hiring a publicist on a monthly retainer, so I much prefer to sell them a package.
Right.
You understand? So I'm one of the most flexible persons when in this job. I'm one of the most reasonable ones. And in fact, if I do anything, is deliver and over deliver over and over and over. And if you ask me who I've worked with a plethora of people in the industry, including Spice, including Protege, including Charlie Blacks, Chronic Law. I've worked with Massacre also. Richie Spice, players from Shaka Demus and players. I mean, the whole Bonner Brothers, I represented all of them. I represented Egyptian, I represented Mr. Vegas, and so many others, So I'm a brand name in the industry as far as publicists are concerned. But I don't let that get to my head.
Yes.
I don't try to outprice myself out of the business.
Yes.
No, and because I love what I do and I want to help people, I try to remain as humble as possible in the terms of how I deal with people and how I price my packages.
You sound like a reasonable man.
That's what I do.
So where can artists get in touch with you? Because I can imagine there might be new artists watching this show. They're dreaming big. They want to go very far in the industry. They've got talent, but they just don't know how to get there. Now that you've said this, you've whet their appetite. They're salivating now. They want to get in touch with you because they know you can make it happen. How do they do that? Where are you? Whereabouts are you reachable? How are you?
I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on all the social media platforms, and it's simple. It's Ralston Barrett. That's it. Just Ralston Barrett for all of those platforms. My telephone number is 876-298-6613. I'll repeat, 876-298-6613. And my email address is Ralston Barrett PR@gmail.com. Ralston Barrett PR@gmail.com.
Loud
Easy to reach.
Loud and clear. Loud and clear, man. I hear that very, very loudly. But you know what? Just before we go, Ralston, I'd like to find out. There's a little hobby of yours, but I think you've given up on that now. The pit bulls. What happened to that?
Pit bull. Yeah. I didn't know you know about
that. I do my research, man. Don't you?
I was very much into raising pit bulls for a while. Unfortunately, my last pit bull passed away last year. She was living at a property that I have in Negril, and the tenant flew out of the island and didn't make arrangements with anyone to feed her, and she starved. I didn't know what was happening at the time. It was during the whole lockdown with the COVID. But I've raised some beautiful dogs, some wonderful dogs. I love dogs. I would say next to birds, dogs are probably my favorite animals. I think dogs are my favorite animals. So I've raised a lot of pit bulls. I've also raised Rottweilers, and I had a beautiful pit bull, man, by the name of Spartacus. That dog was a huge dog, strong, and I had a Rottweiler called Kayla. That was another beautiful dog. And I also used to raise Shih Tzus. Believe it or not, I sold a lot of those puppies because the ladies go crazy over those dogs. And those are girls magnets. A girls magnet, by the way. I'm walking down the road, Shaun. This is like 13 years ago or so, or more. And I have the leash, the one that you can have several dogs on a leash, and I'm walking with like 4 Shih Tzus, and beautiful dogs, and every girl that sees me stop to admire. Oh, I love those dogs, and so I was very popular for raising dogs. And the thing is, I'm gonna get back into it eventually. But where I live now, it's not conducive to raise dogs because I live in an apartment building. I live in an apartment building, so there are other tenants and there are children around. So I don't want to raise, dogs right now.
Yeah, but because it might be dangerous.
It's a passion. It's a passion. Yeah, it's a passion, and
you have to rub the right place for it.
One of my other passions is the restaurant business. Yeah. I also love operating restaurant, so that's something that I'm looking to get back to in the future. But for now, I wouldn't consider reading a hobby. I've been reading every day consistently for about 15, 16 years now. So that's not even a hobby anymore. To me, reading is a job.
Is that job?
And let me say this to you, Shaun. We as black people, we must remember that there were people who gave up their lives for us to have the right to read.
Mm-hmm.
So I not only read for my own satisfaction,
Mm-hmm.
but I read
Mm-hmm.
because this is a right that so many of our ancestors died for.
Mm-hmm.
Because remember, there was a time when black people weren't supposed to be able to read and write.
True.
So it's my duty to get up and read every day. As I said to myself, I'm trying to eradicate my ignorance one book at a time. Because you never know enough and you never know too much and you can't know everything.
Yeah, that's
so true. I'm a very, very dedicated reader.
Yeah. And as Marcus
So
Garvey
I read
once
a lot
said,
of books.
as Marcus Garvey
That's
once, we must read and never stop reading, because the human life is not long enough for us to discover everything
Yes.
we know.
And he said,
We just read what other people have experienced and written
yeah,
down, and then we learn. So that's
yeah,
definitely the way
yeah.
to go.
Marcus Garvey also said, a reading man and woman. I think what they say, a reading man and woman and a writing man and woman is an exact man and woman. So reading is one thing.
Yes,
We must also write.
you must write.
So I'm working on, we discussed the books, but I'm looking to put out my first book this year.
Right.
That's one of the pet projects. I'm writing a book for my daughter.
Right. Well, you know what?
I'll tell you more about that in another interview.
Well, yes, that's what I was just about to say. I will be following you up on that to make sure that when that's released, we can have a little chat about it, a discussion, because your story is so rich. There's so many dimensions to it, so many things that we can learn from it to improve our own lives, as Marcus Garvey said. So you know what? I'm waiting with bated breath. I must see this book. I must read it. So I'm looking forward to it. Make sure you finish it. Ralston, it was really great talking to you. I'm telling you, I learned so much about your life, and everybody who's watching this would have learned so much about you as well. A very resilient man, a man who's had love, you've had pain, you've had all sorts, but you're still around and you're still going strong, still having a smile on your face, and you're still prepared to help and be kind to people. What more can we ask for? That is just a human being. That's what you're, real one. So before
I'm a gladiator.
I tell you, you're the gladiator. All right, so I'm glad I met and I spoke to the gladiator, because this is the interview that is the interview of all interviews, the gladiator's interview. Now, I like to also ask questions of my guests from this book. Reggae Larger Than Life, the ultimate reggae music fun and games book, is written by myself. It's available on Amazon. Also, if you're in Jamaica, it's available from Ashby's Pharmacy, 160 Old Hope Road in Kingston. If you're more into apps, the Android version of the app is available from the Google Play Store. Just download it, have lots and lots of fun. Now, Ralston, I've selected 2 questions for you, sir. So I know you're big and body, you're like running off your mouth and all that. So let me see how good you are. I've selected 2 questions. You ready? All right.
Throw any questions at me.
Okay, let's go, sir. All right, so the first question says, name the legendary band that released the reggae-influenced soulful classic Disciplined Child in 1980. They eventually went on to become reggae's most successful bad boys. The options are Heptones, Inner Circle, Wailers, and Third World.
Well, I could have stopped you before you gave me the options. It's Inner Circle.
All right.
Inner Circle band.
All right, thank you
Yes,
so much for helping me, for making me feel like I'm winning. I'm onto something. All right, so the second and last question, Ralston, it goes like this. Do you remember the name of the DJ who demanded that Mr. Chin sold the right thing in the 1980s? Options, Papa San, Peter Metro, Yellow Man, and Big Youth.
King Yellow Man.
King Yellow Man. All right, you're too good, man. You know your music too well, man.
The right thing.
Yes. Well, you know your music too, man. So what can I say? Yes.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Music is in my blood. But before we wrap up, I want to say to each and every person out there who is watching, never give up on yourself. No matter where you're from, no matter your financial circumstance, your background, and nothing at all. I mean, your education level, don't make that stop you from going for your goals. Always try to improve yourself. One of the greatest ways to improve yourself is through reading and through having constructive conversations with people who can enlighten you and teach you stuff that you don't know. So hang out with positive people. Hang out with people who are smarter than you are. People who can, put some knowledge in your brain. I never want to be the most intelligent or the most smartest person or the brightest person in the room, because I want to learn. My mind is like a sponge. I keep soaking up knowledge. So I want to be around people who can teach me stuff. So it's important to keep on learning. Never give up on your goals. Never give up on your dreams.
Definitely.
Marcus Garvey says, whatsoever is common to man and man has done already, man can do again. So somebody else has done something great, you can emulate them.
Well said, man. I tell you what, I like that. And you're always motivating people anyway, so that's great. So, Ralston, thank you so much. The questions were taken from this book. It's called Reggae Larger Than Life, the ultimate reggae music fun and games book. It's written by myself, available currently on Amazon and also in Jamaica from Ashby's Pharmacy, 160 Old Hope Road in Kingston. If you're more into apps, the Android version is available from the Google Play Store. So, thank you so much, Ralston, for your time here today. We learned so much, and it was so enlightening what you said. So thank you so much to everyone for watching. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. Also leave a comment so we know how we're getting on. Until next time, this is Shaun Cain saying thanks for watching. And thanks once again to Ralston. See you all soon.
Thank you very much, Shaun. Thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I need to pick up a copy of your book. It's on Amazon, right?
Yes.